Hey, what's up guys? Just wanted to do an update video on my Scratch build. I'm still at it. I'm still kind of researching things and studying before I really dive deep into it, and I'm waiting on something extremely special to help me complete this build. I can't quite spill the beans yet, but just know it's something very special and it's really going to take this shell to the next level. But until then, I'm just doing some research. I'm trying to figure different areas out on my own before I get that special gift. So without further ado, I wanted to share a problem that I ran into some time back. This was probably a few weeks back, maybe a month ago, but I never video logged it. I shared it on GB Fans in my build thread, but for some reason I guess I just didn't video it. So we're going to video it. We're going to talk about it. I'm going to try to explain it the best I could. It's kind of hard to explain, but I'm going to try to make the best of it. So I built the Powercell to spec with the screen use measurements that I received to the new measurements, but there is this bottom area that's kind of a dark area. Even with that measurements, I just wasn't entirely sure. A lot of the measurements I have are from a stunt shell, so this being that it was a stunt shell, this area right here is already a problem area because on a stunt shell, the injector tubes were molded into the shell. So trying to find out what's going on down here, it makes it a little difficult. And if you're referencing the production shell, which the production shell was pretty much just a stunt shell that was refurbished, cut up, repackaged, and was put for sale. So that also created a problem down here because it doesn't shed much light either. And actually, if you try to reference the production shell, if you're taking measurements from it to try to help you build your Powercell, you're going to be off in this area also. And you're going to get this artifact down here where the bottom Powercell rib kind of flares out. Actually, let me show you some video of my production shell and show you exactly what I'm talking about. And actually, if you go back to my first Powercell video, you'll see that I have that artifact where this bottom Powercell rib flares out towards the bottom and gets bigger. So I'm going to kind of try to show you the best I can. My injector tubes are bolted in there and riveted on, so I'm not going to be able to remove them, but you can kind of see here the rib starts at 0.125 and it flares out quite a bit on this production shell. So this was an artifact and a nuance that I also recreated originally that I come to find out from a buddy of mine named Burkett. He told me it's not like that on the screen use shells. So it made me have to go back to the drawing board and reassess what I did wrong and try to make sense of it based on the measurements that I was using. But I was able to figure out exactly kind of what they did. But yeah, if you're using this shell for measurements, and a lot of this shell is great for measurements, most of it is good, but it is off on some areas, especially right here, because these injector tubes on the original stunt mold where this shell came from, this production shell, was molded into the shell. So because they refurbished it and repackaged it and try to remake it like a hero pack or a hero shell, these were cut out and this bottom area was rebuilt. So because it was rebuilt, they didn't completely know that how this rib ran, and it runs flush on the screen use shells all the way down. So originally how I did it was, I'm going to take this flash off for a moment. I'll probably turn it back on to explain something else here in a minute. But this bottom rib here is about 5/8, give or take, okay? So where that extra 1/8 of an inch comes out on the bottom, it overlaps the bottom of this bottom plate of the Powercell. So if you were to do that and you had this bottom plate just square, like I did, I had it squared. So when this stuck out 1/8 of an inch, this stuck out 1/8 of an inch here, this area was fine at first. Or starting out, it was fine, should I say. But as it ran down, because this bottom was square, it starts to flare out. And then you get this artifact that's right there. And you don't want that. That's not how it is on the screen use shells. So it took me a night to really think about it and really understand just how wonky and how quickly thrown together these screen use shells were. And so I figured it out, and I realized that the bottom plate of this screen used Powercell is not square. So that was the problem. This bottom plate of the Powercell actually runs with the rib, the angled rib, as you can see there. And when I adjusted it to run at an angle with the Powercell rib, now the Powercell rib is the same. It's flush all the way through. And you're probably wondering what this styrene plate is that I have on here. This is kind of just a template that I have on here to kind of explain something else that's really weird about the bottom of this Powercell, which I'll get to. So yeah, after I angled this bottom plate of the Powercell with the angled rib, problem solved. And that's exactly how it was on the screen use shells. It is angled here. When you're building this and you're trying to match the screen use Powercell, this bottom plate is not square. It is angled with the rib. This right here, as you can see, is a little lip. Now, another weird thing on the screen use shells is, sorry, none of this stuff is glued on yet. Everything's just loose because I'm really trying to get this as perfect as possible. And I will come back eventually and all this stuff will be glued. I'm going to add in the nail marks, make it look really ugly. But that will be the last thing I do. Right now I'm just really worried about measurements and getting some of the smaller details just right. So now that we got our bottom rib just right, correct, I was sent a photo of the screen use shell, and there's this lip that's on the bottom of the Powercell where this curve right here that comes off the EDA that kind of blends into the bottom of the Powercell. Well, it comes to find out what they used was Bondo. They just used some Bondo right here, and what they did is they used a little like putty knife and they scraped the Bondo right here, and it created a lip right here on the Powercell. And that created a problem, which, if you look at the reference photos, you can kind of see that the injector plates are kind of like flared out, and they're spaced right here. Now they're spaced here because they were trying to cover up this Bondo lip that they created when they put that curvature here from the EDA into the Powercell and kind of tried to blend it in. And also probably just to help with molding and demolding, should I say. Here, I'm trying to get... There we go. So, if you look on the superhero packs, you'll see this little spacer block that's sitting in there. And it kind of goes like so. Now, this isn't going on my shell. This will have to be something someone will want to add later if they purchase my shell. I'm just using it to kind of talk about the weirdness that's going on here on the bottom of the Powercell. So this little spacer block was added so that the injector plate, when it sits, can look, instead of going at an angle with the angle of the Powercell ribs, the injector plates go square. And this right here was to help square it out right here so that they run nice and perpendicular with the shell. Now, I hope that makes sense. I'm really trying to find words to explain it. It's really weird. Very strange stuff. But yeah, that's pretty much how it was done. So on the Minnesota packs, they didn't use this 1/8 plate. On the Superhero, they put that 1/8 plate there to help square out the injector plates and to cover up that Bondo line right here. So this styrene plate is simulating the Bondo line that they created when they made that curvature. Very weird. I was looking at the photos. I was trying to figure it out. I had a feeling that the spacer box up here that the EDA goes on was all one piece, and that they sat the top of the Powercell on top of it, and yada yada. It was so hard for me to figure it out, but I think I figured out the mystery. It was just Bondo. It was a Bondo line that came from the EDA over, and it looked ugly, and they tried to cover it up with a spacer block, not only to cover up the imperfection, but also to square out the injector. If you can kind of see there, with that plate sitting there, it goes flush up against that rib, and it helps to square out those injectors so that they come nice and parallel with the side of the shell. So yeah, this is what I've been this is what I was probably my biggest struggle that I've had on the shell so far. I thank Burkett for shedding a lot of light to me about that area and helping me to figure it out. But we figured it out. We're going to move on, and we're going to keep going. We're going to keep going. We're going to keep figuring out these crazy mysteries on this silly shell. But yeah, I think it's going to be awesome in the end. I'm super excited to keep working on it. And yeah, we'll have the finished product hopefully pretty soon. So thank you guys for watching. I hope that made some sense. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave a comment. Until then, we're on to the next one. Thank you guys.